Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I am your host, Rob Dial. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 steps to stop being so lazy and to be more motivated. And I'm going to give you some journaling questions at the end. And so hopefully you guys have maybe a journal, a pen and paper sitting around you. So you can actually take this podcast episode and then integrate it into your own life. And one of the questions that I get asked, probably one of the top 3 or 4 questions that I'm asked, like on Instagram, I get all of these messages, is how can I be more motivated? I'm not really motivated. I'm just a lazy person. How can I be more motivated? And we're going to dive into that. And one of the things I think about with motivation and I think about with laziness is I think that people are inherently lazy. I think that I was lazy, very, very lazy at one point in time. I was a person who was a big pessimist when I was younger. I made excuses for why I wasn't where I wanted to be in life. And I wasn't motivated. I was really lazy. I didn't do anything that I needed to do to create the life that I wanted to. And I feel like I'm a completely different person now. And there's definitely some steps I've gotten to be here. But if you're sitting there and you're listening and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm just not really a driven person. I'm not a motivated person. I'm just kind of lazy. I think that's how everybody is until you find something that is really, really important to you. I literally I just got to the studio a few minutes ago, and I had these guys delivering a sleep number bed to my house. And we were talking as these 2 guys, and one of them was a rapper, and they're like, so what do you do? And I told them what I do, and they're like, man, that's amazing. That's awesome. He's like, I'm a rapper. I've been trying to get big. And we were talking about it. And his other friend that was there is like, yeah, man, like we were talking about creativity. And the guy who was a rapper we were talking about, his friend's like, yeah, man, I always feel like I have like a creativity that's inside of me. I don't know where to put it. And the thing I said to him is, you have to follow your energy. Like you have to follow what gives you energy. So I turned to his friend as a rapper and I said, like, I assume that when you get done writing a song or you get done recording a song, you probably have more energy leaving the studio than you do when you walk into the studio, right? And he's like, oh my God, every time it's like, I'm so excited. I'm so hyped up. And I said, that's the reason why is because that's what gives you energy. And I believe that God or the universe comes to you and speaks to you through energy. Wherever you don't have energy around something, like if you're thinking about your job and you're like, I just dread this thing. I don't really have energy going into it and it feels like it sucks energy from you. It's probably not what you're supposed to be doing in life. But if you have a hobby or something that you're really interested in that gives you energy and you get excited about it, that's probably something that you should try to dive into, follow a little bit more. Like for me, I read a lot of dorky neuropsychology and neurobiology books that most people would not want to read. But I read them and then I get all excited. Oh my gosh, I'm making this connection. I turn to my wife and I'm like, oh, there's this thing and this thing and this thing. And so I always tell people, follow your energy, follow what gives you energy, because usually that's a path that you want to go down. And I want to talk about taking action, because when you have something that gives you energy, it's not hard to take action. It feels natural to take action. And I want you to remember this quote for the rest of your life. I want you to let action and routine drive your life, not emotion. Let me say that again in case you didn't hear it. Let action and routine drive your life, not emotion. One of the reasons why I find that people are so unmotivated is because they're kind of like just going with the flow. And they're just, hopefully I have some energy today. Hopefully I'm excited today. Maybe if I have some energy, then I can go and create the life that I want. No, it's like I want action and routine to dictate where my life is going to go, not emotion, because emotion's fleeting. It's, some days the sun's out and some days it's cloudy. And I'm talking about your emotions. Some days you're happy and some days you're sad. But if you have action and routine driving you, you'll eventually get to where you want to be. One of the reasons why I find people tend to be so unmotivated and not driven is because they don't really have a plan. Like they don't really have a plan. They don't have intention as to what they're doing. And they don't really know where they're going. And so if you don't know where you're going, it's hard to be motivated to take action towards a destination that you can't really clearly see in your mind. And you don't know where you're going, it's hard to take the right action to get there. And so a lot of people wake up with very little vision, very little plan, and then they just try to figure out their day. And it's like getting in your car every single morning, and you just get in the car, you step in the driver's seat, and you're like, okay, where am I going to go today? And you just decide to start driving, and you're driving around, and you're just like, oh, I'm going to take a left here. Ooh, I'm going to take a right here. And then you get pissed off because you aren't where you want to be. But no shit, you're not where you want to be because you had no vision. You had no plan. You had no intention. You had nothing. You just kind of got in and just went with the flow. And that's kind of like hopping into a sailboat, popping up the sail and just being like, well, I'm just going to go wherever the wind takes me, I'm going to end up. No, you can step into the driver's seat and say, I'm going to go this direction. So if you aren't where you want to be, it might be that you don't necessarily know where you want to be yet. Like you might have a vague intention, but you're not really 100% sure. And so let's dive into the 5 different steps, okay? The first one, which I was kind of talking to a little bit, is your vision. My question to you is, where the hell are you going? Like in your life, where is it that you're going? What do you want? I sit down with people and I ask this very simple question all the time. What do you want? Most people don't know. What do you want? Oh, well, I kind of, well, you know, I don't want to be broke anymore. Okay. Well, what do you want? Well, I would like to be happy. Like, I just don't want to be sad anymore. And what's really interesting is when I ask people a lot of times, what do you want? They respond with what they don't want, which means that they're focusing more of their daily life on what they don't want more than what they do want. And so if I were to sit down with you and say, what do you want? Like, when was the last time you sat down with a piece of paper and said, what do I want? And that question can go across your entire life. I'm going to show you how to shift that question around a little bit to help you out. What do I want? Like if you're journaling right now and you're taking notes, ask yourself, write the question out. What do you want? And you can take that question. It could be different every single day. Some days you want to just have a fun day. Some days you want to relax. Some days you want to be motivated and work towards XYZ. Some days you want to work on the guitar solo you've been working on. What do you want? And then if you want to get a little bit more direct with your questions, you can take the different categories of your life and ask yourself, what do you want in your relationship? What do you want in your career? What do you want in your business? What do you want in your friendships? What do you want in your relationship with your parents? With your relationship with your children? What do you want in all of these different categories? Where do you want to be in 12 months? Like hopefully everyone who's listening to this podcast right now is going to be here on this planet in 12 months. Hopefully we all are, right? Where do you want to be? If you're going to be here, wouldn't it be nice to at least have some sort of idea, some sort of vision as to where you're going to go? Where do you want to be in 12 months? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? If you don't know the answer to this, then you'll never have the life that you want because you never actually got clear on the life that you want. It's the example I give it on the podcast all the time. I wrote it in my book as well, which is like the example of if your mom comes in and she's like, hey, honey, what do you want for Christmas? And you're like, I don't know, just, give me some stuff, whatever you want. And she's like, you sure? And you're like, yeah, whatever. And then Christmas comes along and you're opening up your gifts and it's just a bunch of socks. And you're like, what the hell, Mom? I didn't want any socks. And she's like, well, honey, I asked you what you wanted. You didn't tell me. It's the same thing. You can't be mad at her for not getting you what you want when you didn't even tell her what you want. So you can't be mad at you or yourself or your, God or the universe or the world or whatever it is that you don't have the life that you want if you don't even know what you want, right? So the first thing is you have to have vision. The second thing, I'm going to trigger a lot of people, is you have to schedule out what it is that you want. I don't know how many times I hear, I don't have time. Oh, I don't have time. I've got my business and I've got my kids and I've got my spouse and I've got this and I've got this. 99% of people are just terrible at scheduling their time. Hey, if you're loving this episode on how to stop being lazy, please do me a favor. For the YouTube algorithm, give us a like down below. And then also down below, if you have any topics you want me to cover in the future, please put them down in the comments so I can see what you guys want me to talk about in the future. I always tell people like, okay, if you don't have enough time, you're just fully booked up, and people are like, yes. And I'm like, would you be worried that if I followed you around, like if I literally sat next to you, except for when you're going to the bathroom, every single minute of your life for the next week to 2 weeks, would you think that I could probably find some free time, some places where you're wasting time? They're like, yeah, probably. Which shows me that it's probably just time management skills. We all have 24 hours in the day. We do. You're not going to get more of it. So if you're complaining you don't have enough time, none of us have enough time. I'm not saying that some people listening to this don't have less time than other ones. Some people listening to this might have no job and they might have no children and they might be able to do what they want and they might have more time. Some people might have a full-time job. You might have children. You might have a spouse. You might have things going on in your life. But just because of the fact that you have more obligations doesn't mean that you can find some time. It's just going to take more intention, which brings us to number 3, which is intention. Do you wake up every day and go into your day with some sort of intention, with a plan for the day, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you want to feel? You ever ask yourself that question? Wake up in the morning and write down pen and paper, how do I want to feel today? And try to be intentional about how you want to feel. What do you want to accomplish today? What do you want to make what would make today an absolute success? One of my favorite questions every morning to wake up and journal through is what would make today successful? What would make me feel good today? How do I want to feel today? What do I want to do today? What would make today amazing? Are you going into your day with intention? Or are you just driving your car around and just taking random turns and just seeing where you end up? Most people are just kind of seeing where they end up. And if you want to be different than most people, wake up every single day, know what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, and wake up with intention. How do you want to feel today? Do you want to feel happy? Do you want to feel joyful? Do you want to feel motivated? Do you want to go through the day with an open heart and try to be as amazing as you can to every person that you walk across? What would it look like? Go into your day and start thinking about how you can be more intentional. So that's number 3. Step number 4 is to take action. I'm going to give you a really big secret. I know some people who are not successful. I know some people who are very successful. And I know people who are very consistent. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know this. Consistency is key. When you're consistent on taking the right action towards whatever it is you're trying to create, whatever it might be, even if it's the life you want, if it's the business you want, if it's the body you want. If we just take the body that you want, I love using fitness as an example because fitness most of the time is physical. Like we can visually see differences in our bodies. We can visually see how we're doing, right? If somebody wants to get in better shape or gain muscle, as long as they're just consistent, they will eventually get to where they're trying to go. But here's the thing that I'm going to tell you about consistent people. Consistent people are not born consistent. There's not some different chemical in their brain. There's not different chemical balances that they have. They weren't born with this beautiful gift to be consistent. The most consistent people that I have found, they build an environment where they are free from as many distractions as possible. They're free from distractions. Now, they still have some, but they try to remove as many distractions as possible so that they can make it easy to be consistent. If you're consistent with your workout routine, how can you make it easier to be consistent with your workout routine? If you're trying to, let's say if you're trying to gain some muscle, maybe you're really skinny, you're trying to put some muscle on. Well, you probably have to eat higher calorie food. You have to work out, you have to get higher calorie food. Can you make it easy to not eat food that is not what you need? And so can you build an environment, let me say it one more time, the most consistent people are not born consistent. They build an environment that's free from as many distractions as possible. So can you remove distractions that get in the way? Your phone, other people, whatever it might be that's getting in your way. The junk food, the TV automatically shuts off at 10 o'clock and your phone can't be used after 10 o'clock, so you have to just go to bed so you can wake up earlier. How can you remove as many distractions as possible to help you get to wherever you're trying to go? And you have to, with action, get your body moving. Emotions follow the body. A lot of times, what's happening is if you don't feel motivated, it's something called a low dopamine state. So you're in a low dopamine state. Dopamine is the chemical of motivation. So if you feel like you're just lounging around, like I don't know if you've ever been here. I've been here many times where maybe I'm on my phone, hanging out on the couch. I just kind of feel, I don't feel really great. That's considered a low dopamine state, not motivated. So how do I get myself to a high dopamine state in order to be motivated? Well, the interesting thing about it is if you get your body moving, whatever it might be, even if it's just jumping jacks or push-ups or going for a run or doing some squats, whatever it might be. And I've said this many times in the podcast, but I really want, it's funny because I say a lot of things in the podcast, and I'm sure if you've been listening for a long time, you hear it and you've heard it before. But the real question is it ingrained into your brain and is it something that you're actually working on and putting into your life? So when you're trying to actually be more motivated, you don't want to wait to be motivated before you take action. Motivation follows action. So if you find yourself in a low dopamine state and you want to get into a high dopamine state, what do you need to do to get your body moving, take action so that motivation can follow it? Because when you don't feel good, you feel unaccomplished, all of that, it's usually because you don't have vision, you don't have a schedule, you're not intentional, And so therefore it's hard to take action. And you get caught in your emotions and you feel bad about yourself when you've been sitting on Instagram for 30 minutes and you've gotten nothing done for the day. Your energy and your emotions are going to follow the body. So what do? You've got to just get the body moving. Motivation follows action. Just move. Whatever it is you have to do, just move. And number 5, you want to start doing this so often and be able to stay consistent that it eventually becomes a routine. Do you have a set routine? Do you have a morning routine? Do you have an evening routine? Consistent daily action creates routines inside of your body and inside of your brain. And routines will drive you. Routines, what's really interesting about it is routines create freedom. I have one of my employees, and we had a conversation last year about this. He loves his freedom. He loves to travel. He loves to do whatever the hell he wants. He loves to go all over the place. And he was having this, he's in one of our sales team members. He was having this little bit of resistance to routine, to restriction and routine, and saying you have to do this. Routine and restriction in some sort of way, in the beginning, it feels like it is the opposite of freedom. Where it's like, I like my freedom to just wake up and do whatever the hell I want. In order to create more freedom in your life in the future, so if freedom is like the thing that you set above everything else, and you're like, no, I don't want to put routine into my schedule because I like my freedom. No, I don't want to put restriction into my schedule because I like my freedom. Well, if you really like your freedom, then you're going to want more freedom in the future, right? If you can remind yourself to restrict yourself and be more of a routine, you will develop more freedom in the future. Like if you're in sales and you say, I got to make 75 phone calls a day, that's restriction. That's routine. That's something that you have to do every single day. But if you do that, it will allow you to be able to possibly move up the corporate ladder, possibly make more money. And moving up the corporate ladder and making more money could, if you save your money and invest it right, create more freedom for yourself later on down the road. Might even have freedom to be able to retire early. Would you rather not be able to retire and be 85, 90 years old and still having to work because you can't pay the bills? Or, because that doesn't sound like freedom to me, or would you rather have more routine and restriction right now so that therefore you can have the money to be able to retire later on in life? And so I love my freedom, but routines now create freedom later. So if you're lazy or unmotivated, usually it's because you haven't had a vision of where you're going. You haven't created an actual schedule, actually followed the schedule. You don't usually have a whole lot of intention. You don't usually have a plan of action every single day, and you don't usually set routines from it. Would you be more motivated, more driven, and less lazy if you were able to have a vision of where you want to go, a schedule of how to do it, an intention of how you set your GPS every single day of where you're going, a plan of action, and a set of routines? Yeah, of course you would. And so what I want you to do is, I told you, I promise you, I give you this. I want you to grab your journal. If you're in your car, you can wait till you get to the stoplight, put me on pause right now, push play, and then just go ahead and text this to yourself. And these are some questions you can ask yourself just to kind of see what comes up for you, okay? So where do you want to be in 12 months? Where do you want to be in 12 months, 5 years, and 10 years? Okay, write all that down. What is my daily schedule to start moving in that direction? So what does your actual daily schedule look like to help you at least take one step in the right direction every single day? What intentions do I need to set daily? What are the intentions? How you want to feel, what action you want to take, what you want to accomplish, whatever it might be. Next question is, what actions do I need to take today? Next question is, what routines do I need to start creating? All of this is not rocket science. It's just creating a plan to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And we're all lazy. And hopefully we'll all be here in 10 years. If we're all here in 10 years, we'll be somewhere on this planet in 10 years. The actions that you take today will decide where that somewhere is going to be. So that's what I got for you for today. If you love this podcast, please do me a favor, share it on your Instagram stories and tag me at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. I share a ton of stuff on there, usually 2 or 3 times a day, to try to help you guys mold your mindset. So not just this podcast is influencing you, but hopefully my Instagram is influencing you as well. If you love this podcast, you'll probably love my book as well. If you want to pre-order it, you can go to robdial.com/book. When you pre-order it, you also get entered into a pool of over $25,000 in cash and prizes that we're giving to just people who pre-order the book. And for only people that pre-order the book, you'll be getting a free class, a free course on how to stop procrastinating. So once again, that is robdial.com/book. And with that, I'm going to leave the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing